I want to take a minute just to show you a couple examples of how to use the difference identity for cosines. Not to prove it, but to just show you how to use it. So the difference identity for cosine is that if we want to take the cosine of the difference of two angle measures, then we take the product of the cosine of the first one times cosine of the second one, plus the product of the sine of the first one times the sine of the second one. What I say to help myself remember this is that cosine of x minus y is equal to cosine cosine plus sine sine. So if we want to find the cosine of 15 degrees, it's important to recognize that, first of all, 15 degrees is 45 degrees minus 30 degrees. Those are two nice angles that we know about, and so it's a good way to look at that cosine of 15. Then we can use the identity, remembering that the difference identity is cosine cosine, so cosine 45 degrees times cosine of 30 degrees plus sine sine. So sine of 45 degrees, sine of 30 degrees. Then, since these are angles that we know about, we just plug in their values. For 45 degrees, the cosine is square root of 2 over 2. For 30 degrees, the cosine of 30 is square root of 3 over 2. Then we go to sines. Sine of 45 degrees is root 2 over 2. And the sine of 30 degrees is 1/2. Once we simplify, we'll have square root of 6 over 4 plus square root of 2 over 4, which of course we can't combine the root 6 and the root 2, but we can write this as one single fraction as just square root 6 plus square root of 2 all over 4. Once we get outside of the first quadrant, it can be a little bit more difficult to see what angle measures we're going to need, but we do want to rely on angles that we know about. And ones that we know about are like 30s, 60s, and 45s. If I were to add 60 to 165, that would make 225, which is an angle that we know about. So we could rewrite 165 as 225 degrees minus 60 degrees. Okay. 225 being that 45 degree angle that's in the third quadrant. But now that we have it written as a difference, we can use that difference identity, cosine cosine, so cosine of 225 degrees, cosine of 60 degrees, plus sine sine, so sine of 225, sine of 60. Just recognizing right now that how important it is to recognize that we do have the plus in the middle when we're subtracting, that those two signs are going to be opposite. And it's important that we keep that straight. But now that we're talking about this identity and we have everything written in angles that we know about, we start putting in values. So cosine of 225, like we said, is the 45 degree angle. It's in the third quadrant. So its value is going to be root 2 over 2 again. But since it's in the third quadrant, cosine is negative. Okay. Multiply that by the cosine of 60 degrees, which is 1/2. Then we do sine sine. The sine of 225 is again root 2 over 2, and because it's in the third quadrant, sine there is also negative, times the sine of 60 degrees is root 3 over 2. When we simplify all of this, we'll end up with negative root 2 minus root 6 all over 4. And you're going to realize that a lot of our answers are going to involve this root 2, root 6, and 4. That's because we have so few angles that we know about. These differences, the ones that you're going to see, are going to involve angles that are combinations of 30s and 60s and 45s. And so that really leaves us a limited number of possibilities. But that's how you use the difference identity for cosine.